A proper Volkswagen, just a smaller one. The Up has enabled the German brand to regain the initiative in the important citycar sector and sets a high standard for contenders in this class. Frugal, fun, clever and competitively priced, it's a key option not only for those in the market's smaller segment, but also for people buying a compact car of any kind. Volkswagen, the very name, means people's car. The kind of compact, inexpensive transport pioneered by the Beetle over 70 years ago. Something the Wolfsburg maker hasn't had too much success in providing in recent years. Plush Passats, fine 4x4s and multi-seated MPVs have all plumped up the brand's bottom line. But the iconic cars, the ones that the company's really remembered for, not only the Beetle but the Bus and the original Golf, have all harked back to that very first simple, affordable formula. Time then for another icon, a design that democratises small car technology in Europe at the same time as providing a new kind of basic transport for the emerging markets of China, India and South America. A very clever car indeed, the Volkswagen Up. In concept, it was clever even than the finished product we see here. The original 2007 prototype rear-engined, just like an early Beetle, as the German engineers sought to find cleverer ways to get more space out of an ever smaller roadway footprint. But the complexity involved in that would have made the finished production version as expensive as lifestyle small cars like the Mini and the Audi A1. Which wasn't the point at all. This, the company decided, must be something almost anyone could afford. In any case, it could still be clever, even if it was conventional. If the engine was smaller, the wheelbase longer and the overhang shorter, then the ambitious cabin space goals set by the rear-driven concept could still be achieved. A basic formula to which has been added all manner of innovation. Depending on its purpose and the preference of its buyer, an Up can guide you with Google, it can brake itself to avoid an accident, it can be a hot hatch, or at the other extreme, an electric runabout. It can, in short, be all things to all people. A real people's car. Volkswagen virtues shrunk into compact form ought to bring a very appealing result. You'd imagine refinement, a comfortable ride, a solid, well-appointed cabin. A combination of virtues never quite delivered by the brand's previous Fox and Lupo city cars, but very much in evidence here, despite, as it happens, the use of an engine hardly suited to Volkswagen virtues. 1 litre 3-cylinder engines like this one are, in my experience, busily revvy at best and downright noisy at worst, as is the case with Fiat's twin-cylinder multi-air unit. This one, though, is the most refined of its kind. Not quite refined enough, it must be said, to quite let you forget the cylindrical imbalance under the bonnet. But then the characteristic offbeat rasp isn't unpleasant, and it rather suits this car's offbeat charisma. You'll certainly be hearing plenty of it if rapid progress is needed. Without a turbocharger to boost torque, peak power doesn't arrive till 6,000 RPM. That's just 600 RPM shy of the red line. And if you're wondering just how much power we're talking about, the answer is not a great deal in the mainstream 1 litre variants that we're looking at here. Cars that offer a choice of either 60 or 75 PS power outputs with an identical 95 Newton meters of torque in either case. The UK importers, though, are focusing all their efforts on the merits of normally aspirated 1 litre power, and there are plenty of those once you finally get the thing going. I've already talked of the surprising refinement, and that's complemented by equally surprising ride quality. Now, there seems to be a feeling amongst automakers that really tiny cars need kart-like standards of ride and handling. Volkswagen doesn't subscribe to it, and rightly so. You really do, in this car, get standards of big car damping that make you feel like you're riding in something much more expensive. Thankfully, though, there's nothing big car about the urban experience served up here. The electric power steering is as light and effort-free as you'd want in a city tiddler. and the turning circle, it's just under 3 turns lock to lock, is so tight at 10.8 metres that if you're driving along in town and you spot a parking space on the opposite side of the road, you're likely to be able to respond taxi style and turn right into it. If this is your normal working environment, then you'll also probably want to consider the 5-speed semi-automatic robotised gearbox. It's a slightly jerky unit that represents Volkswagen's clutchless option. Personally, I'd want to stick to the ordinary 5-speed manual if at all possible. In town, the thick A-pillars can limit visibility at junctions and roundabouts, but there's the peace of mind, if you specified it, of the city emergency braking system. First, in this sector, it's active at speeds of under 19 miles an hour, and it uses a laser concealed in the top part of the windscreen here to automatically scan the road ahead for potential collision hazards. Now, if one is detected and the driver doesn't react, then the brakes are primed. If the driver does then brake, stopping power is maximised. If he or she doesn't or can't, then the car can automatically come to a halt by itself. The system can even sense if you're about to be rear-ended and autonomously apply the brakes. Very clever. As for life beyond the city limits, well, there are better driver's choices in this class. Cars that roll less with more feelsome steering. But you can certainly have fun in this one, thanks to predictable handling and plenty of grip. There's certainly enough about the setup to suggest that a hot hatch version would be a very accomplished car indeed. Design chief Walter De Silva, who first sketched this car on a bit of paper on the flight back from the 2007 Detroit Auto Show, is quick to sum up his objectives with this design. The friendliness of a Beetle, the rational perfection of a Golf. Unmistakably a Volkswagen, the idea within this brief was to create lifestyle on wheels, a smiling look that was simply appealing, whose appeal was simple. But forget the aesthetics and the marketing speak. 2 statistics really sum up this design. A length of around 3.5 metres and a wheelbase that takes up nearly 2.5 metres of that, which is why, though this up is no longer than a Fiat 500, it offers far more room inside. Space, in fact, for the 4 fully sized adults who could never comfortably fit in the apparently space-efficient Italian car. How has this been done? Well, by shortening the front and rear overhangs as much as the designers dared. Something only possible at the front by mounting the radiator alongside rather than in front of the very compact engine. Now, the result is a very TARDIS-like interior, just as big as that of Volkswagen's far pricier Polo Super Mini. Let me give you one example of how that plays out. Let's take luggage space. Now, you don't get quite as much as was offered in this car's predecessor, the Fox, but open the glass tailgate, apparently styled to look like a flat-screen TV, and as long as you can get your stuff over the rather high sill, you'll find 251 litres of space. And that's almost twice as much as you'd find in rivals like Citroën C1, Peugeot's 107, the Toyota Aygo or the Mini. Push forward the rear bench. It's only split folding from mid-spec upwards, and you get 951 litres of total space, and that's 50% more than you get in the ordinary boot of a huge Volkswagen Passat estate. From mid-spec move-up level onwards, you also get a variable height cargo floor. You can lower it for the carriage of really tall items, or raise it if you want a completely level luggage floor when the seats are folded. And to make best use of the space available, the options list includes a choice of 3 collapsible lightweight plastic boxes with lots of useful stuff inside for either kids, long journeys or city motoring. When not in use, you can simply flatten them and they'll serve as a floor cover. Up front, a cool dished 3-spoke steering wheel fashioned from light magnesium frames an instrument cluster of refreshing simplicity. The overall design with its large speedometer is clean and easy to get to grips with, featuring high gloss black trim and a compact centre pod housing many of the minor controls. True, there's no shortage of hard plastics on display, But this doesn't feel like a car that's been built down to a price, like its Fox predecessor. Instead, it all feels agreeably minimalist. This is certainly a colourful cabin with the option of painted body-coloured panels evoking the spirit of the original Beetle. And it certainly seems to have been well screwed together by the Slovakian factory. For example, turning the air vents to one side, they locate with a well-rounded click. Only a few little touches, the lack of illumination for the electric window switches, for example, betray this car's lowly standing in the Volkswagen lineup. And there's loads of storage space in the cabin. You get bottle holders in each of the front doors, a glove box holder for pens, a compartment for your sunglasses, and 4 cup holders dotted around the cabin. In the back, as I've said, the space available is more super mini than city car sized. Though, as with many cars in this class, you do only get 2 belts, which might be annoying for some families. But I've left the cleverest bit until last, and it's this: the Maps and More portable infotainment system with its 5-inch colour touchscreen that you can carry around in your pocket or your handbag and then just clip into place on top of the centre console here. Now, it contains a navigation system, a media player, a hands-free telephone, and even vehicle information systems. There are 4 basic menus: car info, navigation, media, and phone. In car info, you've got a trip computer, door monitoring, parking assist info, and the so-called Think Blue trainer, which can help you drive more eco-consciously. In navigation, which can display in 3D, it can locate everything from local car parks to places of interest. And if you park the car up and take the screen with you, it can even direct you back to the car if you forget where you parked it. Then there's media, which can play music from SD cards and MP3 players and even display your photos. And telephone, which can sync in with any Bluetooth-enabled smartphone using voice control. Now, Maps and More can be even cleverer if you download onto it a whole range of different apps, but I'll let your dealer tell you about that. If you're wondering about the name, well, yes, so was I. Apparently, it's taken from the middle 2 letters of Lupo, the name of Volkswagen's most recent European-built city car offering. And in terms of the outlay required to make an Up yours, well, you're probably looking at somewhere between £8,000 and £11,000 for the normally aspirated 60 and 70 PS 1 litre petrol models that we've been looking at here. Now, there's a choice of 3 main trim levels: Take Up, Move Up, and High Up. You've got a choice of a 3 or a 5-door body style, and there's the option of a semi-automatic robotised clutchless 5-speed gearbox if you don't want the normal 5-speed manual. Bear in mind that the bottom end of the trim spectrum gets you a very basic car indeed, so most will want to find an extra £1,000 to graduate on to Move Up, mid-level spec, at which point you can opt to spend a further £360 to get yourself a very useful fuel-saving package of Blue Motion technology tweaks for the 60 PS engine. In terms of rivals, well, you've really got to want the Volkswagen badge on this car and like the look, for the same design with the same engine has been reinterpreted as the Seat Mii and the Skoda Citigo, at pricing able to undercut an equivalent Up. But not by much, which makes this Volkswagen arguably the best buy of the trio, since residual values of this car are almost certain to be slightly better than its fellow 2 group brands. As for other rivals, well, of course, there are plenty of those, as you'd expect, given that 1 in every 10 cars sold in the UK now comes from the city car sector. Let's start with this, the entry-level 60 PS 1 litre version of the Up, and base our comparisons on the least expensive Take Up trim level. Now, if you ignore the Mii and the Citigo, then its main competition comes from the single 3 or 5-door design that's variously interpreted as either the Peugeot 107, the Toyota Aygo or the Citroën C1. Performance and running cost figures between these two cars are pretty comparable, as is the price of the entry-level Peugeot version, though list figures suggest that a Citroën C1 or a Toyota Aygo might cost you around £500 more. The next option is Fiat's third generation 5-door Panda. In 1.2 litre 69 PS form, it's about the same price as a 5-door Up and slightly pokier, but a little costlier to run. A Fiat 500 with the same engine is also slightly faster and less frugal, but it's a smaller car that costs a couple of £1,000s more. Next to consider alongside this, the least expensive Up, is the Korean contingent. The 3-door 1-litre version of the Kia Picanto has been priced directly against the base 3-door version of this Volkswagen at about £8,000. A 5-door 1.2-litre high-end i10 has been priced directly against the base 5-door version of this Up at around £8,500. Now, both match up well to this car in terms of performance and fuel and CO2 figures, but both lack this Teutonic model's brand equity and its cheeky lifestyle feel. What else? Well, there's the 5-door Indian-built citycar we know here as either the Suzuki Alto or the Nissan Pixo. Both match this VW stats, but only the Nissan will give you a really significant saving, and both feel cheap compared to an Up. Then there are the mainstream offerings from Ford and Vauxhall, the Ford Ka and the Vauxhall Agila, both of which use a slightly less efficient 1.2 litre petrol engine that matches this car's performance, but in both cases you're looking at paying around £500 more. That only leaves the option of paying about £1,200 more for the rather cramped but city-friendly 71 PS version of Smart's 4.2, or you could pay about £2,500 more for a not much bigger Toyota IQ. There are fewer rivals for the Up in 75 PS form, and none, save Hyundai's i10, can significantly undercut it. A Fiat Panda Twin Air costs around the same as the 5-door version of this particular Volkswagen and is faster and more frugal, but noisier and less stylish. You could get a Renault Twingo with a 3-door body style. It'd be well equipped, but it would cost you far more in terms of running costs and residuals. If you can find an extra £1,000 over the cost of the 75 PS version of this Volkswagen, then you could get yourself a Kia Picanto 1.25 or a Fiat 500 Twin Air, both of which would be slightly faster and more frugal. But that's quite a big premium to find on a £10,000 city car. And I certainly can't see the point of finding an extra £2,000 nearly to get yourself a Mini First that's thirstier and dirtier. But let's say that you've carefully considered all this, considered all the options, and decided that this Volkswagen is what you want. You've looked at the engines available and you've chosen between the 60 and 75 PS power outputs. Now, what will you get for your outlay with this car? Well, if you subscribe to the view that loading up this little Volkswagen with all kinds of extra features will dilute its minimalist charm, then you'll be very well served by this, the entry-level take-up model, because it really comes with only the basics. You even have to pay extra for a spare wheel. Still, you do get daytime running lights and an MP3 compatible CD stereo with an aux-in socket, as well as a 12-volt power socket. Now, if that's a bit hair shirt for you, then you'll be better served at air-conditioned move-up level. Now here there's less of the penny pinching meanness. So you do get remote central locking, a vanity mirror, split folding rear seats, an easy entry rear seat for easier rear access, and the variable height boot floor the boot was designed for. You also get body coloured mirrors and door handles, and you don't have to wind up your windows 70s style, they're electric. Here though I've gone the whole hog with top of the line high up trim. Outside there are front fog lights and 15-inch alloy wheels. Inside you get heated seats and leather covering for the steering wheel, the handbrake and the gear shift knob, as well as electrically adjustable heated door mirrors and a choice of dashboard colour. Best of all, you get what is probably the Up's cleverest feature, the Maps and More infotainment system, with its Bluetooth phone compatibility, its music playing, its sat-nav and its eco driving functions. Here, the only feature I'd really want to add would be the city emergency braking system, which can, in urban conditions, speeds of under 90 miles an hour, even brake the car for you if you don't sense a collision hazard. That's one key safety feature. The others include 4 airbags with the option of 2 more, the usual ABS braking with brake assist for emergency stops and ASR traction control. It's a pity though that ESP stability control is optional on the base model. Any city car stands or falls on its ongoing costs, and here the Up seems to have all its bases firmly covered. Thanks in part to a very low curb weight of well under a tonne, even the 75 PS 1 litre model manages 60.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and puts out 108 grams per kilometre of CO2. Opt, as most customers will, for the 60 PS version of this car, and the returns are better again at 62.8 miles to the gallon and 105 grams per kilometre of CO2. But if saving money on operating costs is your thing, then you'll be drawn inexorably to the Blue Motion technology version of the 60 PS variant. Now, this uses all of Volkswagen's latest efficiency techniques. That's low rolling resistance tyres, battery regeneration and a start-stop system to cut the engine when you're not using it in traffic or waiting at the lights. It uses all of these things to return a combined cycle fuel figure of 68.9 miles to the gallon and a CO2 figure of 96 grams per kilometre. Now, with these kinds of returns, you can see why interest in the UK, at least, in diesel versions of this car is going to be limited. Already, the Blue Motion technology model is able to easily rival the kind of returns you'd get from a diesel city car like, say, a Ford Ka 1.3 TDCi, and the Ford is thousands of pounds more. Want to do even better? Well, although we're unlikely to get in the UK the Frugal EcoFuel CNG gas variant that's offered in Europe, you can talk to your dealership about the all-electric version. But whichever version you end up with, you're going to have all kinds of tools to help you maximise its frugality. For a start, there's a gear shift indicator on the dash to help everyday users get somewhere close to the figures that I've been quoting. But if you want to go a step further and you're prepared to invest in the really neat Maps and More infotainment device, then there are all kinds of far more sophisticated tools to help you maximise this car's efficiency, namely what Volkswagen calls the Think Blue Trainer. Available via the system's vehicle info menu, it offers 3 functions: cruising, consumption and shifting. Now, cruising shows you how fuel efficient your journey has been to date and offers eco tips to improve your technique. Consumption shows the fuel figures achieved since you started out on your trip, and shifting identifies the ideal gear shift points you should be aiming for and offers tips to help you try and achieve those. What else? Well, you get a choice of 2 low-cost servicing packages. Time and Distance will be a package appropriate to owners who cover low mileages of under about 10,000 miles a year. It gives you the usual set service intervals. But if you cover more miles than that, you might be better off switching to the long life servicing regime. Now here, the garage intervals are based on actually how you use your car, and they're extended by the in-car computer where they can be. And the result is displayed on the dash, so you know exactly when you need to visit your dealership. Insurance should be relatively affordable. It's groups 1 to 2 on the 1 to 50 grouping scale. Residual values, well, they should stand this car in good stead against rival versions of this design from Seat and Skoda. And warranties, there's a 3-year 60,000 mile Volkswagen warranty. There's a 12-year bodywork guarantee, a 3-year paintwork warranty, and a year of roadside assistance in UK and Europe. This is the very essence of a small, affordable Volkswagen. A high quality, classless car, very much in the mould of the original Beetle. One of the lightest city runabouts you can buy, it still manages to feel solid, a triumph of packaging and design that's streets ahead of any city car that the brand has yet bought us. Highlights include superb space efficiency, a brilliant detachable infotainment system and a city braking function that'll pay for itself in peace of mind. All very clever, and in execution all very German, which might have delivered up to the showrooms an impressive but essentially rather soulless result. Fortunately, the Up has enough character to make you like it as well as admire it, and in an increasingly fashion-led market segment that'll be crucial. If you like the look and you can afford to go beyond entry-level poverty spec, then there aren't too many downsides here. A few rivals can better this car's running costs, but not by much, and the Seat and Skoda versions of this design are a little cheaper, but then you'd likely lose what you saved in the probable resale value when the time came to sell. Overall then, this is the embodiment of friendly functionality behind a badge you probably thought you couldn't afford, with potential cleverness you almost certainly won't be expecting from something city car sized. A thumbs up then? That's about the size of it.